Gevaudan, Bray Road, Palmyra. Oh my. Tonight we're covering a classic cryptid and my personal favorite, werewolves. Welcome back, Dreadfuls. I'm Jean, and I have a different host with me tonight. It's my husband, Rick.
Hi.
Hello, and this is the Dr. Dread podcast, where we explore all things unusual, unsettling, and unexplained. And tonight we're doing a personal favorite of mine. We're doing werewolves.
I like werewolves.
I like werewolves, too. I was a weird wolf girl before being a weird wolf girl was cool.
I hate saying it. I'm probably Team Edward over Team Jacob, even though he's kind of a werewolf, but I can still kind of roll with the werewolf myth, aside from Stephanie Meyer's version.
Hey, fair enough. So, stories of werewolves, or lycanthropes, as they are sometimes called, humans who shapeshift into wolves or wolf-human hybrid creatures in any sense, have been with us seemingly as long as humans have existed. They certainly trace back to even before ancient Greece and Rome, but I can do a whole other podcast episode on werewolf history. We'll save that for its own episode, because tonight we have 3 different werewolf stories. The Beast of Gevaudan, the Beast of Bray Road, and the Palmyra Maine werewolves.
I've heard of 2 of those.
You've heard of 2 of those?
Yeah.
Which 2?
It's sad for being a historian. I should know more. I've heard of the Beast of Bray Road. I've heard of the Palmyra one. But it's the French one that I know the least about. I've heard the name, but I've never really looked in the similarities and differences between the different types of genres, so to speak, of werewolf.
I didn't know a lot about the story. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know a lot about it until I really started looking into it for this podcast. But the Beast of Gevaudan, and I apologize in advance for my pronunciation of any of the French names here. Vivo en Texas, aprendí español, no sé cómo hablar francés. I live in Texas. I had to learn Spanish. French is not my language. So when I butcher the French names in this story, I apologize.
I know a little bit of German. I supposedly was a French major when I was at Baylor, but I think they just took mercy.
You were not a French major. You just took French.
Well, I had to take French as a language. That's what I mean. Like, you had to take a major language.
That is very different than being a language major.
Oh, God, no. Oh, God, no. I couldn't do that.
Anyway, the Beast of Gevaudan was man-eating animals that terrorized the former province of Gevaudan in south-central France between 1864 and 1867. They were said to be a tawny or russet color with dark streaks and a black stripe down their tail, which was longer than a wolf's tail, that ended in a tuft of fur. Which is an odd description.
Yeah, I'm processing that in my head right now.
Yes, but the attacks covered an area spanning roughly 50 square miles. The first recorded sighting of the beast was in summer of 1764. A young woman who was tending cattle in the Mercois forest, again, my pronunciation, I apologize, near the town of Lannion, saw a beast that was, quote, like a wolf, yet not a wolf. It came at her, but the bulls in the herd that she was managing managed to keep it at bay and drove it off after it tried to attack a second time.
How many reports were there in total?
A lot.
A lot.
A
Really?
lot. Yeah.
Oh,
We'll get into it. It even got the attention of Louis XV.
Really?
Yes. There were a lot. That was just the very first sighting.
Okay, this is sad because I'm French and I know nothing about this, but granted, my people were from further south than that.
Yeah, this was like, I looked up where this was. It was just a little bit south of central France.
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit north of where my people were from.
Yeah, yours were from like really south.
Marseille.
South France. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so shortly after that, on June 30th, the beast's first victim was recorded. A 14-year-old girl named Jeanne Boulet was killed, and her burial certificate specifies that she was killed by, quote, the ferocious beast, which suggests that she wasn't truly the first victim, just the first victim recorded and being attributed to the beast.
Okay, and this burial certificate, was it, I'm guessing, yeah, it's so bad I don't know my French history in this part. I'm guessing this was similar to what you'd see with a death certificate in modern America.
Most likely. There weren't a lot of details about it. It just said that her burial certificate said that she was killed by the ferocious beast.
So that means there's been more than one account.
That's what I said. Yeah, but the way they wrote the ferocious beast, it indicates that they knew what that meant. That
so
it wasn't,
had a term of parlance there in the area.
Yeah, that it wasn't just, a random animal attack. It was the ferocious beast.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I said, so that suggests she wasn't really the first victim, just the first record we have of it being attributed to the beast.
Well, a lot of those records are lost to time now, especially from that era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's, like we said, that's just the first recorded one that we have. So a second victim was recorded on August 8th, also a 14-year-old girl. The beast seemed to like preying on people who are isolated, walking around by themselves.
I mean, that's typical predatory behavior right
there.
Yeah,
that's to be expected. So the attacks continued through the summer until terror had absolutely gripped the region. The beast again was reportedly preying on lone men and women and children as they tended their livestock. But interesting details, reports say that the beast, when it attacked, seemed to target only the victim's head or neck.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yes.
And wow.
So
there has to be multiple reports of that.
Yeah, so there were multiple reports of that for that to be a common theme. And that could either just be that this is, I'm not sure if that's just, predatory instinct, that it predators know that the head or the neck is a good place to attack, or if it had attacked so many humans by that point that it learned that those were weak points.
Yeah, it goes to that basic question, is it instinctive or adaptive?
Yeah.
At that point. Wow. That is very interesting. So was it mainly just with people who were tending animals, or were people alone when it happened?
It seemed to be mostly people who were alone. I think they just tended to be alone a lot when they were out tending livestock. That was just part of life, as you go out tending livestock and you're by yourself.
I mean, just on basic biology right there, that's predatory behavior 101 right there. Never attack in groups.
Yeah. So, but like I said, terror had gripped the region by this point. So in addition to noting that the beast would only target the victim's head or neck, witnesses also claimed that the beast could walk on its hind legs, and that it even had supernatural powers, like that it could repel bullets and come back from the dead after being wounded.
Oh, there we go. There's the birth of the modern werewolf. I mean, really, if you think of it, that's
why I lump this in with werewolves, because that's falling into classic werewolf lore.
Is there anything in the French lore about silver or anything remotely like that?
Not specifically that I found, but there is a story about the guy who finally killed it and bullets that he had. It was just a story written by a French author, but we'll get to that when.
Oh, there's a guy who actually killed it.
Yes, when we get to the guy who finally killed it.
So he's bugs only for the werewolf instead of the Bigfoot.
Yes, he's bugs. He's the werewolf's version of bugs.
And if anybody doesn't know that reference, if I'm on this podcast, you're going to hear a lot of Art Bell Coast to Coast AM references, because
yes.
I think I'm like a modern historian of that now. At least you tell me I am.
You are the Art Bell historian.
Oh my God, that sounds awful.
No, it's not. That's a good thing.
But anyway, there was this guy that in the mid-90s that called into the Art show and said he had killed a Bigfoot, a pair of Bigfoot.
Two Bigfoots. Yeah.
And the hilarious part was it was in a place we used to live in West Texas, very similar. It was probably about 30 miles away from it.
Yeah, I think the place where he said was more up into the Panhandle than where we were.
Oh, he changed his story 3 or 4 times. So if you ever really pay attention
about exactly where it was,
he changed his story. But anyway, he said he and a couple friends killed a Bigfoot.
Yes.
So sorry.
And when he called into his story, he said he wrote out a very detailed map of where they buried these things.
And he sent it to Art.
I still want to know what happened to that map since Art has died.
Yeah, I know. And for those that don't know, Art Bell died in 2018, which was traumatic to me. because that guy was I have just full laying it all out. I have about 100 gigs of his
You have
shows.
a lot.
That I've
You
collected
have
over the
a lot
years.
of Art Bell.
But I find that very interesting that there is that connection. There's a story where somebody actually shot the beast.
No, apparently it's recorded that this guy actually killed it. It's not just a story. Apparently he actually did get it.
Well, that's fucking impressive because you never hear stories like that. Okay,
Yeah.
keep going.
But anyway, by late December of that year, rumors had started circulating that there might not just be one, there might be a pair of these beasts.
No.
The attacks were occurring in such high numbers that it seemed unlikely to be attributed to only one animal, and some of the attacks were reportedly having occurred at nearly simultaneous times.
Okay, so what general time of the day did they say these attacks were happening?
I haven't found anything that gave a general time of day.
One would just think it's evening, dusk.
Yeah, it's probably something like that. But eventually there were reports that listed sightings of multiple creatures, and even some reports that said they saw a beast with some of its young.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Not much more information than that, but just that there were reports of that time that came out and said they saw a beast with some of its young.
Okay, I hate to go full historian on you a second, but where were these reports coming from? Do we know?
Not really, just from the local populace of the area.
Okay, so most of them are some sort of oral tradition.
Some sort of oral traditions, yeah, okay. That had eventually gotten passed up because the attacks had gotten so bad that eventually the Bishop of Mende, Gabriel Florent de Choiseul-Beaupré, I apologize horrifically for that, wrote a lengthy text calling for prayers and penance, claiming that the beast was a scourge sent by God to punish men for their sins.
Damn, so the Catholic Church gets involved.
The Catholic Church even got involved. A bishop actually wrote out a text calling for penance, saying that this was punishment from God.
And if the Catholic Church gets involved with anything in France, that's a big fucking deal.
It was a big
because
fucking
there
deal.
is a love-hate relationship between the Catholic Church and the French.
Yeah, this beast was a big fucking deal. But despite the divine pleas for help, the attacks continued.
Much like the bubonic plague.
Yes. Yeah. So on January 12th, 1765, a man named Jacques Portefeuille and 7 children were attacked. They managed to drive the beast away by staying grouped together, but this finally caught the attention of King Louis XV, who actually awarded Portefeuille a substantial sum of money and an education at the state's expense, and decreed that the French state would help find and kill the beast.
Okay, that really caught some fucking attention if it got that far.
Yes.
Wow. And just, you said 1765, right?
Yes, this is in 1765.
Okay, just picture this on a global scale, that we are getting almost to the American Revolution at this point. We're about a good 10 years away from the American Revolution. The French, from a political standpoint, are very, very much tied up in the goings-on in North America at this point, because the French and Indian Wars that just happened in the 1750s.
Yep, they still have their holdings up in
largely Canada, and the Ohio River Valley and everything like that. So you've got all this shit going on a large global scale, and this got their attention. That's serious.
Yes, and this got their attention.
I just wanted to put that historical context there, because that says something. That got holy shit.
Yeah. So as stories of the beast spread, even not just in France, but throughout Europe, first Captain Duhamel of the Clermont Prince Dragoons, which are mounted infantry apparently, and his troops were sent to deal with the beast.
Interesting. Yes. So they sent the military out.
They sent the military out. But apparently Duhamel didn't get along with the locals very well. They reportedly didn't cooperate well with him, which impeded his efforts. And on several occasions, he's said to have almost shot the beast, but was hampered by the incompetence of his own guards.
Well, if you see how the French were doing in that time period, largely, that wouldn't surprise me, because, once again, remember, most of the French military at this point is now in North America. So if you were left behind in the country at this point, you probably weren't on the A team. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, apparently his own incompetence or the incompetence of his men got in the way. So Duhamel was effectively replaced when Louis XV sent two professional wolf hunters, Jean-Charles Marc-Antoine Vumès Deneval and his son Jean-Francois. And they arrived with 8 bloodhounds in tow who had been trained in wolf hunting.
Okay, so shit got real. They took the B team out. They actually sent
shit
guys
got
that
real.
knew what they
They're
were doing.
sending people who at least supposedly know what they're doing.
Did they catch him?
Nope, it was not him.
Damn.
So the Denevals and Duhamel did not get along at all. Their hunting methods were too different. Duhamel insisted that organizing large wolf hunting parties was the best method, while the wolf hunting professionals, the Denevals, believed that the beast could only be shot using stealthier techniques. And so Duhamel eventually left and returned to his headquarters.
Okay, that's interesting. So the military was looking at more large-scale hunting, correct?
Yes, that apparently, yeah. He thought that organizing large wolf hunting parties was the way to go.
Well, let's just look at how European military worked in general during this time period.
Yes, this is still the line everybody up in a field in lines and shoot at each other method going on.
Yeah, and I find that interesting because the more stealthy approach they're talking about is essentially what won the Americans the American Revolution with Nathaniel Greene and everybody in the South, the whole idea of quasi-guerrilla warfare.
Yes, and these guys were, if they were advocating for stealthier methods, they were probably like actual hunters and trappers who know that marching large hunting parties through forests and open fields is just going to scare away anything you're trying to catch.
I find that amusing too, because so much of this is so funny because so much of it parallels what was going on in North America during this time period, because most of the hunters and trappers who were in North America that were French absolutely hated the French military that was there.
Really?
Yeah. This is from someone who's taught American history for years. That's hell. I never knew that. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
There's
so
your
there you
commonality
go. Yep.
between the two.
But apparently, despite being professional wolf hunters, the Denevals weren't any more effective at Duhamel, and the attacks continued this whole time.
And do we have a body count by this point?
No, not really, but it was a lot.
Well, obviously, it was a hell of a lot to get King Louis's attention on the whole thing.
Yeah, I haven't found anything that's given a body count, but apparently it was significant. So in June 1765, the Denevals were replaced by a man named Francois Antoine, who was a bear hunter for Louis XV and his lieutenant of the hunt.
Okay, now we're even going higher. We're going to the S tier team.
We're going even higher. So on August 11th, a woman named Marie-Jeanne Vallée, a 20-year-old woman and a servant of the parish priest of Palmyra, yeah, I probably got that wrong, but that's the best I can do, was walking with a small group of women on a footbridge across a small stream when they were attacked by the beast. And this tells you how bad it was, because apparently Marie-Jeanne happened to have a spear with her, so apparently people were just like walking around armed.
So the common folk are literally walking around armed because they're scared shitless.
Yes, because she apparently had a spear and managed to wound it in the chest when it jumped at her and attacked her.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes, the beast apparently dropped into the river and then disappeared into the woods.
You got the locals going around.
You've got the locals walking around
weapons
armed.
Damn.
Yeah. So the story, of course, reached Antoine, who came out, examined the scene and the spear that was used to wound the beast, and he believed that, you know, with the blood on the spear and what was left at the scene, he said he believed, yes, it was the beast.
I'm guessing he was doing forensic testing at this point.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Since he's part of the King's Guard,
he absolutely
pretty much.
had forensic testing in 1765. Sure.
Well, he had a DNA tester there just in his cart, probably.
Yeah, but on either September 20th or 21st, we're not exactly sure of the date, but Antoine did kill an unusually large gray wolf. And so Antoine stated, We never saw a big wolf that could be compared to this one. Hence, we believe that this could be the fearsome beast that caused so much damage.
Okay, we're going to get scientific with this. Are they going to tell us anything about size, weight?
I didn't put it down. I can pull it up real quick. Give me a second. Let me pull it up.
I'm just curious what they think for the time period, what they consider large. Because I mean, this is Europe. There are so many wolves and different variants of wolves throughout Europe. I mean, if it was like Jacob Black that I saw in Washington one time, that scared shit out of me because that was the biggest damn wolf I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, it was said to be 31 inches high. 5 feet 7 inches long and 130 pounds.
Holy shit!
So it was a big old bitch.
That's a big animal.
It was a big old bitch.
Holy shit!
Okay, where were we? Yeah, so it was a big one.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a big ass wolf. So Antoine thought they got it.
Apparently they didn't.
No, they didn't. So for a while it seemed like they did get it until, because he killed the wolf in September 20th or 21st, and until December of 1765, nothing happened. There weren't really any more reports of the beast. But then in December of 1765, 2 boys were attacked in a neighboring community. So it had moved away from Gevaudan a little bit.
Okay. Which direction was it moving?
I don't know. Apparently these communities were not around anymore, and I couldn't figure out where they were.
I was just trying to figure out kind of on a map where it was because, I'm having trouble placing almost any of these places.
Yeah. Apparently Gevaudan is not even a place anymore.
It's not even on the map anymore. Okay.
So yeah, I don't know where it was, but it was a neighboring community where it went. So it killed 2 boys in this neighboring community. So it was still alive.
Do we know if it's the same one, or do we know if it's like the pair?
I think it's the same one, or at least one of the same ones. And I'm wondering that if the beast was wounded when the girl speared it, if it didn't decide that it was not a good neighborhood for it anymore and moved on somewhere else.
I mean, very likely. I mean, predator behavior, absolutely.
That might account for those couple months where nobody was receiving reports of attacks.
They got one, but the other survived pretty much.
Yeah, or if there was a pair of them, maybe that one died from it and the other one went elsewhere.
No, that makes sense.
But yeah, so it showed up again in December of 1765. After the 2 boys, more attacks followed, and shepherds were now reporting that the beast seemed to show no fear of cattle. Because remember, in the first report, the bulls in the cattle herd were able to drive it away. Now the shepherds were saying that it didn't seem to be afraid of cattle.
Oh, that's different.
So like we were saying, it's learning and adapting.
That is okay. That's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also about a dozen more deaths were reported during this time.
A dozen?
Yes.
Holy shit! In this other area.
In this other area.
So it moved on from Gevaudan.
It moved on from Gevaudan and went wherever else it went.
And killed 12 more people.
And it's killed 12 more people.
Is that including the boys, or were there...
I think that's in addition to the 2 boys.
Okay, so it's now got a body count of 14.
Just in this new area.
In the span of what? 3 or 4 months?
Let's see.
Because we're like at the end of 1765 right now.
Yeah, end of 1765. So, between the end of 1765 and about March of 1766.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, that bro was busy.
Yeah, bro was busy. So, of course, reports go back up that this thing's back. But by this point, Louis XV is just done with it. He has no further interest in it. And he really doesn't want to admit that his guy failed to get the beast when they thought they did.
Yeah, and he can blame the political climate going on in North America for
yes,
this.
And things in America are...
Shit is heating up.
Shit is heating up at this point. So he has no further interest in the beast. He's done with it.
Fend for yourself, commoners.
Pretty much, yeah. As like I said, as we get into March of 1766, after this thing has killed about a dozen people, the local populace has figured out that the court is not going to help them.
They're SOL on their own, and now they have to figure out their own solution.
So they tried to organize some small hunts unsuccessfully, and apparently some local noblemen even suggested poisoning the carcasses of dogs and leaving them in places where the beast was known to have been sighted. But that apparently didn't work either.
There is some intelligence to this.
Yes.
That is the underlying tone I'm getting out of this. That we've got a couple things. I mean, yeah, predator behavior, absolutely. But there is some intelligence.
Yes, it does seem to have some intelligence. Yes, because even though attacks continued throughout that year of 1766, by the time like 1767 rolls around, reports claim that, as they called it, enterprising as the beast was at first, by this point it's becoming more cautious in its attacks, and it's ranging over a smaller area.
Still in that same area?
Still in that same area, but not ranging out as far as it used to.
That is intelligence.
So, yeah, this thing was displaying some intelligence.
Damn. So how many did it kill in the rest of 1766?
I don't...
Is it hard to tell?
It's hard to tell, but it was finally killed on June 19th in 1767 by a local man named Jean Chastel. He was finally able, in another one of those small hunting parties that had been organized, he actually managed to kill it.
A local bro took out the
Local
thing.
bro finally got it.
Wow.
Yes. And there is a story, like I said, we're going to get to a bullet story. There is a story about Chastel using large caliber bullets that he homemade from Virgin Mary medallions.
Okay.
But that was turned out to be purely an invention of French writer Henri Porat.
That sounds like something the French would make up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But anyway, it is similar to like the silver. It's similar to like the silver bullet werewolf.
There you
thing.
go. Yeah.
It's just another version of that.
Well, there's an analogy to it.
Yeah, saying it could only be killed with bullets made from Virgin Mary medallions.
That's no different than a silver bullet. Yeah.
But apparently there was like an autopsy done on this thing, like the day after the beast was killed, that ended up actually being preserved in the French National Archives.
What the hell?
Yes. And it described the animal as, quote, this animal, which seemed to us to be a wolf, but extraordinary and very different by its figure and its proportions from the wolves that one sees in this country.
So what the hell does it look like?
Just that description that I gave you at first. But it did say that this autopsy report said that its upper jaw had 20 teeth in total, 6 incisors, 2 canines, and 12 molars. And the lower jaw had 22 teeth, 6 incisors, 2 canines, and 14 molars, which is indicative of a canid of some variety.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so guesses based on the descriptions of it were that it could be a young lion, a striped hyena, possibly a tiger, or a large wolf or wolf-dog hybrid.
What the hell would a hyena be doing all the way?
Any of those though. A lion, a hyena, a tiger. What are any of those animals doing in France?
What, a fucking traveling circus or something?
Maybe.
But they couldn't tell if it's a fucking lion? Well, it is the 1760s.
They don't have access to. They didn't have Steve Irwin. They didn't have somebody going around giving them video programs about different animals.
That's just the damnedest thing, though. So it sounds canine in nature from what they're describing.
Yeah, at least its skull and the way they describe its teeth seems canine.
Well, I'll tell you the fucked up thought that went through my head is, how the hell did a hyena make its way?
Yeah, because back to the original description, a tawny or russet color with dark streaks and like a black stripe down its tail. The only thing that gets me about a hyena is that they said the tail is longer than a wolf's tail.
That's a long fucking tail.
Yeah, but ending in a tuft of fur, that's kind of like hyenas too. So, yeah, when I first read the description, I thought it did sound a little bit like a hyena.
I'm going to go with shapeshifter.
But yeah, I mean, apart from actual animals as theories, yeah, maybe we did actually have a shapeshifter.
That's some weird ass shit. Wow. And it literally terrorized that whole area for 2 years.
Oh no, more than 2 years.
More than
Started
two.
in 1764. They finally killed it in 1767.
Damn.
So 3 years.
That is impressive. Whatever the hell you are, bro, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But it just comes back to my mind. I keep thinking hyena.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I read the description too, was that it was a hyena, because they were saying, their first thought is wolf, but not a wolf.
Yeah, that's one of the first things that come to mind. Well, obviously it's not a fox, because fox don't get that
and
big.
they have foxes there. They know what foxes are. And
fox
foxes don't get that big.
Yeah, they fox hunt across that entire area for hundreds of years prior to this. So they know that, but I guess more fucked up things could happen where you could have a hyena essentially make its way from the plains of Africa all the way.
Maybe some rich idiot visited Africa or something, and somebody had some hyena babies, and he thought, oh, one of these is cute, and tried to take it back with him.
Well, that's no different than what we do here in America.
We still do that shit.
Remember Tiger King? We do that shit here in America. Yep. No, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that absolutely could be, because I was thinking the other option would be it would be a zoo, an escaped animal from a zoo, but that was not very common. Zoos were not common until the Victorian age and the Industrial Revolution. Zoos were very uncommon.
Then if it was a zoo and somebody had it, if these reports started circulating all over Europe, somebody, if they had a zoo, might have known what it was.
Yeah, or at least said, shit, we're missing X.
Or at least said, oh yeah, we lost our whatever it is. That's probably it.
I'm kind of liking the theory more that it was a fucking hyena and some rich dumbass ended up not being able to care for it and left it out in the wild.
Yeah.
But if there were two of them, there was obviously a pair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hyenas are aggressive. That it would make sense.
Yeah, they can be, and the fact that it seemed to have been intelligent. I can't remember where I heard this, but I remember reading something fairly recently that said scientists are figuring out that hyenas have figured out a new hunting method.
I remember reading.
Yeah, you remember me telling you about this?
Yes.
Yeah, that basically they figured out that if they don't act predatory when they're approaching prey, like especially around a water hole or something, like they act like they're just casually strolling through to the water hole, like they don't act like lions do, like where they start looking like they're surrounding them and
like
sneaking up on them.
Actually stalking them.
Yeah, that if they just casually stroll in and act like they're uninterested, the prey animals won't react to them. And so they could just walk right into a herd of wildebeest or zebra or whatever and then attack them.
I mean, something like that, it gives a lot of credence to the idea that you've got maybe a couple of these fucking animals that are well outside their natural habitat, and they're having to adapt. I mean, well, that proves the adaptability there.
Yeah.
I'm still going with shapeshifter.
Hey, that is a more fun theory.
It's more attuned to what we're trying to do on this podcast.
Yes, it is. And hey, there is weird shit out there that we don't know about, so it's always a possibility.
Just go look in the sea.
Oh, dear God. Yeah.
You got to do some episodes about how fucked up the sea is. I need to do some episodes about
crazy, fucked up, scary shit that lives in our oceans.
I mean, we talk about fucking aliens. There's some fucking aliens in the water.
Yeah, we have aliens. They're at the bottom of our ocean.
Damn. But that's amazing. 3 years. It was able to stay in the wild for 3 years. That takes intelligence. That takes adaptability and intelligence.
Yes. And figuring out that it attacks only the neck and head on humans, learning to eventually not be afraid of cattle.
I'm going to go with shapeshifter number 1, and then number 2 for probably the most plausible would be hyena.
Yeah. But yeah, whatever it was, interesting story. So, on to the Beast of Bray Road.
Oh, this is one of my favorites.
Yes. So the Beast of Bray Road is said to be a wolf-like creature, and it's so named because most sightings have occurred on or near Bray Road in Elkhorn, Walworth County, Wisconsin. And its typical description is what you'd expect of a werewolf creature. It's said to be 6 to 7 feet tall when standing upright, covered in dark fur with a muscular wolf-like body, a canine snout, glowing amber or red eyes, and pointed ears. And although witnesses often report it standing on 2 legs, it is said to be able to drop on all 4s and run swiftly like a wolf.
Yeah, that's your traditional werewolf.
Yeah, that's your classic werewolf right there. So the first sighting was allegedly in 1936 on the grounds of the St. Coletta School for Exceptional Children. Wow, that's a name, in rural Jefferson.
What are they teaching X-Men there? That sounds like the Charles Xavier School
for gifted children. Yeah, it does. It does. So, hey, maybe that's where the X-Men actually are.
Shit, Wolverine.
That's where
it's
Wolverine
fucking
is.
Wolverine.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We solved the Beast of Bray Road mystery.
It's fucking Wolverine.
It's Wolverine. Okay, so, but even though it was first cited in 1936, an influx of sightings in the 1980s and 1990s prompted a local newspaper, the Walworth County Week, to send reporter Linda Godfrey to cover the story.
Okay, that's interesting. It's got the media attention.
It's got the media attention. And she was initially skeptical, but she said she became convinced of the sincerity of many of the witnesses.
Did it say how many she interviewed?
I don't know, but there is a book about it. I haven't found, because I haven't found a copy of it yet. I need to get my hands on a copy of it, and I wanted to get this episode out. But
that'll be good for an update.
Yes, yeah. We can do an update. But the articles she wrote about it in researching the story later became a book called "The Beast of Bray Road: Trailing Wisconsin's Werewolf."
No, it's a good title.
Yeah. So the werewolf lives in Wisconsin. Wow. Instead of Montana.
Okay, I was half awake and half asleep when I thought of that.
Okay, I'm sorry. You have to tell them your werewolf lives in Montana story now.
Okay, besides being a law professor and a historian, I've been involved in the audio world for the better part of 25 years. All this stuff you're hearing is just, me and the audio shit I've been involved with for a while. But I guess around like 2010. Yeah, it was around 2010. Me and my best friend, happens to be a music minister, got hired for a project where we were going to record these 2, what's a nice way to put it? Old age persons.
Yes.
That had their own ministry, and they were 75 plus, and they wanted to record an album. Well, I had
they wanted to record an album singing gospel songs. Pretty
much, yeah. And so, me and my friend, we built all the tracks for it. I'm a guitar player, play drums, play bass. He's a piano player and a singer, and he did like the background vocals. Basically, we put all the shit together for it, and then we had a day at my friend's church where he was at the time, and they came in and we recorded at a closet with choir robes. Why?
Good sound absorption.
Good sound absorption. Yeah, it worked. And if you're listening to this and you're an audio person, please do not bitch at me too much about the audio you're hearing right now. We just bought a new house. I haven't put up sound trapping yet.
Yeah, we don't have anything on our walls right now.
I apologize for that if you're like me and hear that shit and get pissed off. But anyway, we're recording these 2 old people, and I have been going since like 5 that morning, and we're like at 6:30 in the afternoon. I think we had an hour off for lunch. I'm trying to record this whole fucking album in one day.
Yeah, you were tired. You were very tired that day.
I start getting sort of spacey, and
yeah, it's as the guy. It was a man and his wife who were doing this, and it was as the guy was recording his vocals for some song.
Yes, and it was very, very dramatic. It just extremely like gospel dramatic. And I'm sure everybody's experienced this once, that part where you're not awake, but you're not asleep, and you're having all these weird fucking thoughts. And so this part's coming up. It's getting very dramatic, and My friend's running the soundboard. He's running the recording computer at this point. I'm just sitting there just listening. And this big dramatic minor chord comes up, and he's like, and
was this in "I'll Tell the World That I'm a Christian"?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Go listen to that song if you've never heard it before. Anyway, it to me, in that fucked up state I was in, it sounded like a dog howling. And somehow my brain connected that with a werewolf and the state of Montana.
Yeah, because you said, look, you were like half asleep at this point. You had this weird, like half awake, half daydream, half actual dream.
Yes.
And you said you thought you saw like a werewolf like come through the doors of like an old West saloon in Montana or something at that point.
Yeah, it was like, well, it was like fucking Tombstone with a werewolf, except that my brain implicitly knew it was fucking Montana.
And from then on, our code name for that song while he was polishing up the tracks and putting them on the CD was "The Werewolf Lives in Montana."
Yes. And still to this day, me and my friend laugh about that song because of that harrowing experience I had in my head. And no, I was not on fucking drugs at the time.
Just sleep deprivation.
Just sleep deprivation. It can do the same thing.
Okay, I'm
sorry. Please continue.
Yes, I'm sorry. We had to give you that story about the werewolf lives in Montana, but in this case, the werewolf lives in Wisconsin. So, like I said, Godfrey was initially skeptical, but as she interviewed witnesses, several of them reported the beast having made contact with their vehicles, leaving scratch marks either on their doors or their trunks. One witness says she hit something while crossing Bray Road, and so she does what you do when you think you've hit something. She got out to go see what it was. And she claims that a large wolf-like creature with red eyes chased her back into the car and left scratch marks on her rear passenger door.
Oh, God. I got to go off just for a second. That reminds me of something I saw, and it was on like one of these shitty apps that has like free TV. Mm-hmm. And I cannot remember the name of this show, but there was some couple. I told you about it. Some couple that were driving through Wisconsin and they were pulling a trailer. Like,
yes. Okay. Yes. I remember this.
And the story is almost fucking identical to this one.
Yes. I truly think that because this was just supposed to be like random scary stories or something that you were.
It was some bullshit
that you'd found because it was one of those dumb free TV app things. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they pulled that story from Beast of Bray Road.
It was almost identical to the story you just told.
Yeah. Because in that one they were driving somewhere. They like got a flat tire out there. They got a flat tire on the trailer. Went out and looked around, and the werewolf scared them back inside. Yeah, something like that. I'm pretty sure they pulled that story from the Beast of Bray Road reports.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, although most sightings happened at night, there were also some that were reported during daylight hours, with several witnesses claiming they saw an unusually large wolf-like creature running through cornfields on all fours, and one witness even claims to have seen it in pursuit of a deer.
Okay, yeah, I've heard these too.
Yep, and animal mutilations were also common in these reports, particularly deer and livestock.
In what year range was this?
This is in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So these animal mutilations, the animals were said to have usually been partially eaten, with specific organs removed from the carcasses.
With specific organs.
Specific organs. Yes.
Oh God! Now we're getting into like the crop circle shit.
Yeah, crop circles and satanic cults and.
Well, satanic cults had their heyday in the 80s.
It was the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I blame the Lost Boys for that, and Ozzy Osbourne.
And Ozzy, yeah, you can't bite the head off a bat at a show and not cause satanic panic
or piss on the Alamo either.
Yeah,
yeah, it's funny.
Just Ozzy Osbourne things.
Yeah, it's funny about those stories, but because some of that blends together a lot when you hear about like these surgical alien killings and things like. There was a woman that used to be on Art's show all the time named Linda Moulton Howe, And her whole thing was she looked into crop circles and she looked at mysterious cattle mutilations.
Yes, and tried to blame it all on the aliens.
She tried to blame it all on the aliens, but it just clued me in, but because of certain missing organs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's always how it is. There's very clean, almost surgical incisions, and organs are missing.
That's just interesting to kind of see that overlap, and
Yeah.
especially in that time period, because that's when a lot of those cases really picked up. So there's some overlap there. I don't know why the fuck there is, but there's overlap.
Yeah, but there it is. Yeah, and one witness actually claims to have been driving down Bray Road late at night one night and saw, again, an unusually large wolf-like creature eating an animal that had been killed and was roadkill on the side of the road. And as her car approached it, it ran into the woods.
Free lunch.
Free lunch, yeah.
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers. Free lunch.
So yeah, those were the sightings. That was the most frequent bunch of sightings, was through the 80s and the 90s. But it has been cited as recently as February 2018 and July of 2020. Witnesses in both those instances say they saw a large, hair-covered creature standing upright, one in Spring Prairie and one in Lyons, which are both still in Walworth County.
Okay, we have smartphones. Where the fuck's the picture?
I know. In 2018 and 2020, you've got photos. Unless it was, too far away to get a good shot.
Well, that's interesting. That's still in the same county.
Yeah, that it's all still in Walworth County.
That is really interesting. That part interests me the most because it just goes against traditional migratory patterns that you would see for these types of animals. Like that, usually you'd see predators follow, migratory patterns through different counties. Say if they're following deer, they're doing something like that. That is odd.
Yeah, and it I think that kind of discredits the misidentification theory, which is the main theory that skeptics like to throw out, that it's just misidentification of other animals like bears or wolves, especially if they have mange.
Right.
But if people are only reporting it in Walworth County, that kind of discredits the misidentification theory, because if it was just misidentification, that could occur anywhere.
Yeah, and it would follow general migratory patterns of prey animals. I mean, I remember growing up, love or hate it, I was a hunter growing up, and you could see migratory patterns between prey and predators every year. It made sense. So, yeah, that in a lot of ways makes it stranger, a much stranger argument to say it's misidentification, especially for animals that are migratory in some nature.
Yeah, because
I know I'm going off on that,
but no, like if it was a bear with mange or something, you could see a bear standing up on its hind legs and get misidentified as something anywhere in Wisconsin, not just in Walworth County.
Now, granted, I'm probably not the best at identification, but I think I saw the chupacabra in Idaho one time.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah, that's another episode.
Yeah, well, we will do an episode on the chupacabra.
And I sure as shit saw that motherfucker.
And you can tell your chupacabra story. But anyway, yeah, the most sightings occurred in the 80s and 90s. Those last two in 2018 and 2020 were the most recent sightings. So hasn't really been seen fairly recently, but still, the Beast of Bray Road has cemented itself in cryptid lore, and there was even a movie in 2005 made about it called The Beast of Bray Road.
It was shit. I've seen it before.
Oh, you've actually seen it? Yeah, apparently it was a low-budget horror film I was going to show you, but yeah, it's that one.
Yes. I remember seeing that, and yeah, I was more disturbed at how bad it was.
I have not seen it, but
you're not missing much.
The beast in The Beast of Bray Road is it's ridiculous looking.
It looks like a mutated bear.
It kind of does. But there was also a documentary made about it in 2018 called Bray Road Beast. Real original with your titles, guys. But yeah,
do better.
But it features interviews with witnesses and various experts.
I find it interesting that this has been so pervasive over such a large period of time.
Yeah.
That to me is the compelling part of the Beast of Bray Road, and just outside of this podcast, my own interest in looking at these things from a historical standpoint is when you have something this pervasive and for this long, there is something to
There's
look
something
into.
there. Yeah, because like the Mothman was basically seen once. Just that one rash
Just
of
that one
sightings.
time.
Yeah. Let's see, the Flatwoods monster that I covered in a recent episode, that was seen one time.
Right. I just find it interesting that I don't know if it speaks more to a developing oral tradition over these things, or if it speaks more to potential validity of these claims. Because I always kind of look at both. Like, go back and we'll have to cover an episode talking about the vampire panic of the late 1700s.
Oh yeah, that's on my list of stuff to do.
The Mercy Brown case, all that. But it's when you have certain events like this, you start seeing that oral tradition develop with them to where everything starts looking the same. The stories all kind of come out the same way. They start with a nugget of truth, and then you have this coalescence almost of stories being the same.
Mm-hmm. But then you have to sift through: are people really seeing what they claim to see, or is it confirmation bias based on the developing narrative that they expect?
You got to the word I was looking for: confirmation bias, which happens with oral tradition stories all the time. But the damnedest thing about this one is you have such a wide period of time, from like the 30s all the way to 2020.
Yeah, even though the sightings were, mostly clustered in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, but still the fact that you still have similarities to this is saying something. And what's interesting is the stories are not just holistically identical. Because, I hate doing a comparison contrast, but think back to the vampire panic. It was obviously consumption. It was tuberculosis that was killing these people. But
they didn't understand that at the time.
Yeah. But you saw the stories take on this very similar tone. Every one of them were extremely similar. But there's enough variability that it kind of makes you wonder, are they actually seeing something?
Yeah, like some claim to see it running on all fours through a field. That one said they saw it eating a roadkill on the side of the road.
Yeah. I'd like to think it's not as simplified that it's just become damn near a meme there to where, I see a fucking dog with mane, just Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah.
I hope it's not that.
I hope it's not that. Well, granted, they do all say it's unusually large. So hopefully they're not misidentifying a dog.
Well, they're not misidentifying the chupacabra because it was smaller than that, but that fucker's fast.
Well, yeah, the chupacabra is smaller.
Yeah.
Chupacabra's not 6 or 7 feet tall.
Yeah, like a really big chihuahua.
Mexico City, Puerto Rico, Nicaragua. Hey, chupacabra. Yes, that is another Art Bell reference. There, he had a song about the chupacabra to the tune of the Macarena that he played every time someone talked about the chupacabra.
He had a chupacabra specialist on in 1996, and almost every time during a break, he played that fucking song.
The fact that you know when these episodes happened is insane to me.
If you understood my journey through law school and the fact that I drove 200 fucking miles a day to go to law school, I was a long haul truck driver going to law school. I had to have some comfort, and I couldn't call you all the time. So what the fuck did I do? I listened to Art Bell. And then I started memorizing pretty much all the good ones.
This is why I say you are the Art Bell historian.
It was good, though.
Yeah.
The damnedest thing is for all this shit, and I find this interesting, that all this shit, I don't think he ever had anybody on talk about the Beast of Bray Road.
Really?
I don't.
For all the weird stuff he talked about, he never did the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah, and not that I can recall. I don't remember it coming up once.
Huh.
Which I find very, very interesting. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, because most of the sightings happened in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, he was really doing his coast-to-coast thing during that time.
Well, he was squarely in the middle of it.
Yeah, that was what he was at the height of doing his coast-to-coast thing.
Art, you could argue Art was at his height probably between like 93 and 2000. So it'd have been squarely in that range.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is weird that he never did it.
I don't know. I could be missing one. If somebody's out there that listens to Art Bell as much as I do, and I'm missing one, then I want that fucking episode.
Yes.
Because I do not have it.
Yes, I want to hear Art Bell talk about the Beast of Bray Road, if it's out there. Okay, but anyway, on to our last werewolves, the Palmyra Maine werewolves.
Okay, I know a little bit about this, not as much as I do the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah. So, Palmyra, Maine is a small town in south central Maine, and as of the 2020 census, has a population of 1,924.
Big town.
Oh yeah, big town. So apparently, around 2005, Eric Martin, who had worked at a paper mill elsewhere in Maine for over 20 years, injured his back. He said he blew out some discs, and that left him unable to work. So his wife, Shelley, who hadn't worked for a long time, now had to find a job and was able to land a job in her hometown of Palmyra. So that's what took the family to Palmyra.
Keep going. I think I recognize this story.
You think you recognize the story?
I think I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
So, they actually ended up, because Palmyra is such a small town and usually not people's first choice to live, they ended up in a small town in a house with more acreage than where they had lived before. And this is why I wanted to find the county records on this house, because I wanted to know exactly how much acreage they had around them, because it's described as being very remote, pretty massive. That there's not much around them.
So this is what you were looking for.
This is what I was looking for, because I wanted to confirm this. I wanted to see how much acreage this thing is sitting on, how remote, how isolated they really were, because this house is described as being pretty damn isolated.
I think it might be worth a call to the county records to see this.
I couldn't.
I know this
find
story
it.
now.
Yeah, but
Mr. Ballin read this story.
But yes, on the subreddit Werewolves, a Reddit user did identify the address as 309 Madawaska Road.
Okay.
So again, that I was not able to confirm that. So
yeah,
that is just possibly an address. So yeah, they moved into this house, possibly 309 Madawaska Road. It was Eric, Shelley, and their 17-year-old daughter, Chelsea. Now, this is just some odd information that I found. When I was looking for information on the house and the property, there are no records of the Martins owning a property in Palmyra, so likely they were renting at this time, especially if Eric had, just lost his job and they were having to move. They were likely renting. So again, without an owner's name for this property, I couldn't confirm where this property is, but checking on that address on Google Maps and Google Earth, it does look very remote. There's nothing immediately around it, but there doesn't appear to be a porch on the house that's pictured at that address, and the story does very much describe them having a front porch wherever they are.
So what was the year of this story?
2007.
Well, they could have renovated the damn thing.
They could have. So do with that what you will. Until I can get my hands on some actual county clerk records for this property, I can't confirm that is the address.
It's always well within reason that somebody would have a house that old, and I'm guessing the house was older than 2007.
Oh, for sure it was.
They could have always renovated it. Could have changed hands and they renovated it.
Yeah, and even though the Martins are described as being married, when I was searching the records in around Palmyra, whatever county that was in, to try to find this house, apparently they divorced in 1990. They had Eric and Shelley were divorced as of February 1990. I did find that. That was actually recorded in the county clerk's records in 2001 for property division purposes, but they must have gotten back together at some point.
Okay, no, that shit happens.
I mean, shit happens, but here's the interesting thing. They had 3 children at the time of the divorce. Chelsea, the one who was with them at the time all of this happened, was not one of them. And she was said to be 17 at the time in 2007. Now, they were divorced in 1990, so they would have had to have gotten back together, and Shelley would have had to have had Chelsea in 1990 for her to be 17 in 2007. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, shit does happen.
I was in the law profession a long time before I was a
And
professor, and weird shit happens.
yeah, and just they did an episode about this on a show called Paranormal Witness in 2013.
Mr. Ballin retold the story.
Mr. Ballin retold this
Yeah.
story, and they in that show they split up the interviews of the people with dramatic reenactments, and in part of the stuff Shelley was telling, she did say it was her daughter who was living with them at the time.
So maybe it was the daughter from a prior marriage.
So maybe it was a daughter or from outside of the marriage, because remember they divorced in 1990, and Shelley was supposed to be, or the daughter Chelsea was supposed to be 17 at the time.
Well, it could have been a catalyst for the divorce.
So yeah, so maybe that's part of what's going on here. But just
you going in these people's dirty laundry.
I'm not meaning to. I was looking for this stuff, and then I found this other stuff about, because the daughter was Chelsea, but she wasn't one of the kids listed, and her age was weird. So I'm just throwing that out there to draw your own conclusions about whether that's evidence that this is something made up or not.
Well, it goes to the veracity of the claims.
Yeah, see that's what I mean. Is just there's stuff that's a little odd here, and without having the whole documents, the whole story, I can't say one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, it's not dragging these people under the bus. I mean, all this you've said is theoretically possible.
Yeah, all we can say for certain is that there is a divorce that was granted as of 1990.
Well, if adultery was listed on there, then you may have a better story to that.
When they told their story on the Paranormal Witness, Chelsea was supposed to be 17 at the time. So. And Chelsea was not one of the children of that divorce.
Okay.
So that's what you've got.
Okay.
But anyway, while they were moving in to this house in Palmyra, Shelley insisted that Eric could not keep his guns in the house. Eric had been a lifelong hunter, so he ended up storing them in the barn on the property. And apparently that had always been a point of contention between them.
Okay, this point I have always found very interesting. And now with all that other stuff going on there, it makes me think there are some other mitigating factors behind why the guns were supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, or it points to, maybe that had been, if they got divorced at some point, maybe that really had been a point of contention between them.
I mean, you won't know without reading the records.
You won't know.
But, you can speculate all you want.
But yeah, so anyway, apparently they had their son Sean, who was, older at the time, move in, who came over to help him move, and then he helped Eric build a big secure gun case for them in the barn.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was like some secure gun case in the barn.
Yeah, apparently he helped him build a secure gun case out in the barn for him.
Okay, that's a detail I didn't know.
So as the family settled in, Eric and Shelley developed a ritual of sitting out on the front porch every night. This is why I said I found it odd that the house at that supposed address didn't have a porch, because it became their nightly ritual to go out and sit on the front porch and drink their coffee every night.
That's okay until the werewolves come.
Mm-hmm. So about a year after they moved in, they were out on the front porch doing their nightly ritual of drinking their coffee, and Shelley thought she saw something out in the woods.
Dramatic tension.
Yes, dramatic tension. So, according to Mr. Ballin's retelling, the tree line was probably about a few hundred meters away, across a gravel driveway in front of the house and across a large open field. And Shelley said she saw what looked like lights in the trees. And she described the lights as pulsating, not something that would be mistaken for like vehicle headlights. And also there wasn't a road in that direction where she saw the lights.
Okay, that's interesting. I did not know that point. So there was no road in the direction where she was looking.
No, there was no road in that direction.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So Eric thought that it, since there's no road out there, it's not going to be a vehicle. It might be a poacher on their property.
Well, there's always a potential if there's a lot of land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and apparently they had a lot of acreage around them. Again, which is why I wanted to find records and see just how much we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So apparently their son Sean happened to be hanging out with them that night, and so Eric called Sean and told him to come with him and help to go walk over to the lights and address the poacher that they thought it was and tell him to leave.
Okay.
But as Eric and Sean got closer to the tree line, the lights started to fade. And by the time they reached the tree line, the lights were gone.
And this is that tree line that's about 100 meters away from their front porch.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so by the time they get to the tree line, the lights are gone.
I'm really trying to really kind of picture this in detail.
I know. And that's another reason I wanted to find the records of where this place actually is, so that I can, pull it up on Google Maps or something and really get a look at it.
I mean, this story, just for people who haven't heard this before, this is like the seminal tale of the Palmyra wolves.
Yes.
This is the closest thing to canon we have on this. And, if it sounds like we're ripping apart, it's because no one has done it up to this point.
Yeah, I'm really not trying to rip apart these people's story. I'm not, believe me, I like I said, I'm a wolf girl. I want to believe the werewolves are out there, but I want to know the details.
I know. So you've got 100 meters from the front porch to where they walk out to this tree line.
Yeah, so they get out to the tree line. The lights have vanished by that point. And so Eric and Sean are fairly certain that whoever it was has left the property by this point, but they still decide, just to be sure, they're going to walk out into the woods just a little bit, and they've been yelling this whole time, this is private property, you can't be here.
Fuck off, get off our property.
Yeah.
Damn punks.
So, but yeah, they're going to walk into the trees just a little bit, still yelling that this is private property, just to make sure that whoever might have been out there is really gone. So Eric and Sean make their way into the forest, maybe 10 or 15 meters in, and they hear what sounds like somebody walking parallel to them, just off, a few meters away, maybe on their left.
Okay. So they're in the woods now.
They're into the woods a little bit, and they hear something walking parallel to them on their left side.
Okay.
Yeah, and at this point, they stop walking, they hear something on their left side, and they think it's some kind of predator at this point.
Well, that would track.
Which would track for being up in Maine and being out in the woods. And, they're out in the woods a little bit. They can tell the lights are definitely gone. So they decide, okay, it's time to just get out of here at this point. So they turn around, they go back to the house.
Were they followed? On this first account?
No reports of them being followed.
That's something I always wondered about this first pass that they kind of made. It's always kind of cut off, but there's nothing said.
No, it's just that they hear something, walking mostly parallel with them on their left. They decide, to hell with this. Whoever was out here is gone. That's probably a predator of some sort. And they go back.
Okay.
So some accounts say the incident with the lights occurred about a month prior to the main events we're going to talk about. And some say it was just the night before.
Yeah, see, I've heard both on this.
We don't know. And then even the year, according to the Paranormal Witness show, this occurred in 2006. But according to a book that I'll talk about that detailed the story, it was in 2007.
Okay.
So more or less the same time frame, but Labor Day weekend. Either way, Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, that fact I found very interesting because in every account I've read, they were very, very clear that it was Labor Day.
It was Labor Day weekend. Yeah, but 2006, 2007, either way, Labor Day weekend. Eric and Shelley are on the porch again, per usual. Chelsea had apparently already gone to bed that night. And this was from that Paranormal Witness show. Shelley says that she remembers that it was unusually quiet that night.
Unusually?
Yes, just unusually quiet. And all of a sudden, Eric says that he just felt something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
He just got that creepy hair standing up on the back of your neck. Something's watching you. Something isn't right feeling. So he just all of a sudden grabs Shelley and says, "We need to get in the house." But before they go inside, Eric and Shelley say they saw 3 large creatures out in the field by the house.
Okay. So when we're breaking this down on this field by the house, Are they talking that 100-meter tree line?
This is the field in between the house and that tree line.
Okay, so we're talking the space between the house
Yeah,
and the tree.
that big ass field between the house and the tree line.
That's what I always wanted to know specifically, if they were talking about that same area.
Yeah, that
I mean,
that
presumably
big-ass
they
field.
were,
Yeah.
but I just, okay.
But yeah, that big ass field between the house and the tree line. And so there were 3 creatures out there. And Eric and Shelley said they appeared to be about 7 feet tall. They walked on 2 legs, but the legs had the shape of a dog's legs. And they had eyes that reflected a bright yellow-green color.
That's odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not red, not amber, but a bright yellow-green color.
I've been hunting a lot of years of my life, and I've never seen anything like that. That's odd.
But yeah, on that Paranormal Witness episode, Shelley said it was almost fluorescent. It was that bright.
Okay, that's very different then.
Mm-hmm. And they had short tails, probably less than a foot long, and covered in fur. 1 was light brown, 2 were darker brown.
And so they say they're able to see this from their vantage point on the porch, and they can see this with reasonable certainty.
Yeah, somehow they knew that 1 was. I don't know if they knew it was brown, but apparently 1 was a lighter color and 2 were a darker color.
Okay, and presumably this is around dusk,
or at night when they're out on the porch. Or yeah, it must have been either at dusk or there must have been like a moon out or something. But
now I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm colorblind as shit. I can't really see. I can see shades. But when it gets dark, it's hard as fuck for me.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's hard for me to tell.
Even for people who have color vision, when it gets dark, it gets hard to tell what color things are.
That's just something, I don't know why that one threw up my bullshit meter a little bit.
Yeah, but anyway, their fur was described as smooth, but it looked, quote, wilder and stuck out around their heads.
Okay.
Yeah, and they, of course, had the pointed ears, of course, and it said it started by their jaw and extended up on the side of their heads past the top of their heads.
So let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're seeing this from 50 yards out or 50 meters out.
Yeah, because they're closer than the tree line, apparently. We don't know exactly how far away they are.
Okay.
But they're in the field, so they're closer than the tree line.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a hell of a lot of detail to be able to pick out from 50 meters.
Yeah.
But, okay, continue.
But anyway, so as Eric and Shelley are retreating to the house, they notice 2 more approaching from another direction.
Did they say which direction it was?
No. But they noticed 2 more approaching from another direction. These 2 on all 4s. Described almost as if they were trying to be covert about it, like they were trying to do a sneak attack on it while they're focused on the other 3.
So are they closer than the other 3? These other 2?
It didn't specify.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing I found specified whether they were closer. Just they were coming from another direction, and these 2 were on all 4s at the time.
Okay.
But when the other 2 were spotted, then they stood up on their hind legs like the other 3.
When they were noticed.
Yeah, when they were noticed.
Okay.
And Shelley said that when they walked on 2 legs, they looked sleek, so not awkward or unbalanced like you'd expect a wolf or other canine to be on their hind legs.
Well, we have a werewolf, and he's awkward as shit when he stands up.
Yes, our Sherman is our werewolf. He's a big Great Dane mix, so he looks like a scruffy Great Dane, basically.
Looks like fucking werewolf.
So he's our werewolf, and yeah, he does not stand on 2 legs well.
He's not graceful.
No. But yeah, she said they looked sleek when they ran on 2 legs. So it seems they were accustomed to running on 2 legs, whatever they were.
That's an interesting choice of words for that. I'm sorry. I'm going into detail about this because I was hoping you'd do this particular story because this has bugged the shit out of me for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm going a little investigative into it, but I think it's interesting the word choice, because even then they said they walk like dogs, right?
Yeah, they said the back legs were shaped like dog legs.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting that if this, if this is true, that they noticed that their back legs are shaped like dog legs, yet they're sleek when they walk like that.
Because to me, those things don't jive.
Yeah.
I want to be Fox Mulder, but at the same time, I just don't understand that part.
Yeah, there are things that are odd. So at this point, Eric and Shelley have made it into the house, and Eric wants to go out to the barn and get his guns out there. But Shelley is adamantly opposed to that idea.
So you got these 5 creatures, and
wandering around out in your...
And she's adamantly opposed to him getting a fucking gun.
Well, he has to leave the house and, make his way out to the barn where the guns are to go get them.
I forgot that part. Sorry, I forgot that part.
Yeah, remember she didn't want the guns in the house. He kept them in the...
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah, he kept them in the gun case out in the barn.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, Shelley's like, no, you're not going back out there to go get your guns. So Shelley at this point goes through the house and starts closing all the windows. So Eric couldn't make it all the way to the barn to go get his guns. Because remember, he blew out discs in his back. He doesn't move terribly well at this point. But he did manage to get outside and get to the car and back it up as close as he could to the front door to possibly, have a way for the family to escape.
Okay, so just let me set the scene. You've got 5 of these creatures now, presumably less than 100 meters away from their house. This guy's disabled,
Yeah,
but
he goes out to get to the car to back it up to the front of the house.
Okay, got it.
But apparently the car was closer than the barn was.
Okay.
So as Eric was getting the car, it set off the motion sensor light by the front porch.
Okay.
So while he was getting the car, he found that he was nearly face-to-face with one of these things.
Okay, so if it sets off a motion sensor light, we're talking...
No, apparently Eric set it off in his getting the car and getting it up there.
Okay, I'm just talking about time of day.
Yeah, so it's
dark
by this point. Yeah,
it's
dark by this point.
Once again, that just goes back to just the color thing.
Yeah.
Motion sensor lights don't go off until...
It's dark.
Yeah, it's dark.
It is very much dark by this point.
So now he's staring face to face with one of these motherfuckers.
Nearly face to face. It's a little ways off, but it's outside the edge of the light from the motion sensor light.
So being generous, about 30 feet.
Yeah, maybe 30 feet, but it's outside the light. And Eric says he thought it was going to attack him. It looked like it wanted to, but it also didn't seem to want to move past the edge of the light.
Okay.
And so at this point, Eric hurries back inside the house.
Okay, yeah, that's something I've heard in multiple accounts, that didn't want to go into the threshold of the light.
Yeah. Now, this up to this point, this has all been contained in a book called Shadows in the Woods, A Chronicle of Bigfoot in Maine, and apparently just other stories by Daniel S. Green that was published in 2015. And at this point in that account, it says at this point the family went to sleep, and they eventually went to sleep, and when they woke up, they found weird tracks.
Okay.
Outside their house.
Okay.
So that's where the story that was contained in that book kind of left off. And so the stories diverge because on the show Paranormal Witness, that contained additional details. Okay, let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, so where the book documentation ends, they went to sleep. They went out to investigate their yard the next day, and they found weird tracks, which they described as overlarge dog prints with a hook on the end that made them longer.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the whole Paranormal Witness one, because that's the one where they talk about how they scratched at the house or something like that.
Yeah, they didn't scratch at it, but there's some more details. So the Paranormal Witness episode, it was called Wolfpack, and it aired in 2013. it also contained, before that night on Labor Day weekend when the creatures came on. Apparently, earlier that day, Chelsea's boyfriend Nathan had come to visit for Labor Day weekend, and Chelsea and Nathan were out walking the dogs. They had 2 hunting dogs, apparently.
Okay.
And so they're out walking the dogs, and at some point the dogs ran out ahead of them like they'd caught a scent of something they wanted to go investigate. So Chelsea and Nathan chase after the dogs, and when they catch up to them, they're sniffing at this hole dug into the ground and the brush in wherever they were.
I'm presuming out in those woods.
Yeah, out kind of
Yeah.
in the field, out in those woods, some area. So the
Okay.
dogs found this hole dug into the ground in the brush, and they said it was odd because it was almost a perfectly circular shape. It almost looked like it had been human made.
Interesting.
And it was a large hole too.
Okay, and so just to kind of compare this, because going back, one of these accounts says it was a month between when they first saw those eyes.
When they first saw the lights and when this happened. And another account says it was just the day before.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand where that hole fits into the whole.
Yeah, the hole is the day of when the creatures come at night.
Okay.
Yeah, when they found the hole is the day of. So yeah, Chelsea and Nathan don't know what to make of it, so they just, get the dogs and drag them back to the house.
Okay.
Yeah, so the night of the attack, once Eric comes in for the first time, once Eric and Shelley get in the house for the first time after having seen these creatures out in the yard, while Shelley is going around closing all the windows, she makes her way to Chelsea's room and goes to wake up Chelsea and, says, look out there, look at the creatures through the window. And she was just kind of like, okay, whatever, and laid back down.
Right.
But she's a teenager. She's 17. She got woken up in the middle of the night. She doesn't really care.
Yeah.
So after closing the windows, it dawned on Shelley that she hadn't heard the dogs for a while. So she goes around from room to room calling for the dogs and finally finds them cowering in a corner.
Okay, yeah, I've heard this.
Yeah, and
part
she says
before.
these are hunting dogs. They're never scared like that. And so according to Shelley, that's how she really knew something was wrong. That these dogs were that scared.
Yeah, that doesn't track for hunting dogs. Hunting dogs are usually fucking fearless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so not listed in the the write up I saw on what was in that book, but in the Paranormal Witness episode, Shelley says that she actually called 911 and tried to tell the police what was going on.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But apparently all the police told them to do was, make sure your windows are shut and lock your doors because they likely thought they were misidentifying something like bears or wolves.
Yeah, which would be common in that area.
Yeah, is to be expected. But Eric, after realizing, when he went outside to get the car, that the creatures seemed to avoid light, he decided he wanted to go to the barn to retrieve his guns.
Okay.
So he went outside and he walked toward the barn, and apparently he has to pass the garage at some point. They have another motion sensor light on the garage. So he went out there, he waved his arms around, he got it to trip, and he found himself nearly surrounded by these creatures. But again, they won't cross into the pool of light cast by the motion sensor light.
Did he see how many of them there were? All 5?
It was all 5 of them.
Okay.
It was all 5. And apparently the garage is close enough to the house, where he could get back to the house. He said he saw them, just right outside where the light ended.
Right.
And he knew he's not going to make it to the barn to get his guns. He's got to get back in the house.
Right.
And he has to do it before the light goes out. So he makes his way back and retreats back into the house. So at this point, they realize there's nothing they can do. They can't leave. The police aren't coming to help them. They just kind of have to wait out the night. And so they go get Chelsea. They all kind of hunker down in one of the bedrooms together. And Eric said that he could hear the creatures moving around, just outside the house.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Shelley said that she could hear them like a low guttural, like growling.
Okay. Was there ever when and I can't remember this on the paranormal witness thing, was there ever a confirmation that they called the police?
I don't know. I don't know because I couldn't get my hands on, we'd have to do like a FOIA request to.
Oh, it'd be interesting as
It'd be
hell.
interesting as hell to see if they did put in a 911 call.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, revisit this and do an update when I can, find some of this other information that I wanted to find on it.
But because if they actually called 911 instead of just a regular non-emergency line, FOIA would, because a call has to be entered for 911.
Yeah, it has to be entered. So yeah, FOIA
Ask me how I know that, because I was a dispatcher.
Yep, so FOIA would get us that record. So yeah, that would be really interesting to do a follow-up when I have more time to do more research and possibly request.
Well, and it's easy to do a FOIA because they said it was on Labor Day weekend, so we can
narrow it down. It's Labor Day weekend, only 2 years, either 2007 or 2006.
That's easy to search. That you're not asking for a needle in a haystack on something like that.
But yeah, I just figure, a small town like Palmyra, you're going to be waiting a while.
Well,
on a FOIA request
there's like what,
that.
2,000 people, like you said, in the whole town.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would make sense. Now it'd be interesting.
It would be interesting to do a follow-up and see
Yeah.
what we can get our hands on.
But then the skeptical part of me goes, well, doing a FOIA on something that fucking old, I mean, what's their retention policy?
Yeah,
I know what it is here in Texas, but
yeah, who knows if they actually still have it. But an article published about the Palmyra werewolf incident in 2023 on the website for the Penobscot Bay Pilot, which is a news outlet based in Camden, Maine, which is the one that did the write-up on the story that was reported in that book.
Right.
They said that once the Paranormal Witness episode aired, the Martins were unhappy with the many embellishments and exaggerations the producers made to their story, but didn't specify what embellishments and exaggerations they were unhappy with.
So this family never came out and set the record straight about this.
Or at least, this one article that I found on it in this obscure little news outlet in Maine didn't get their hands on it.
At least not detail for detail.
At least not detail for detail. All it said was they weren't happy with the many embellishments and exaggerations.
Well, it's a made-for-TV movie, essentially, is what each one of those episodes are.
What those episodes are.
Yeah. Would it shock you at all to see a producer or somebody like that making something up for ratings?
But we were talking about digging into the veracity of the story. If this weird little news outlet did at least get that out of them, that they were unhappy with the embellishments and exaggerations, that speaks to there's at least part of that story that's true.
Right. It's just digging into what actual part of it is actually true.
Yes.
I mean, the low-hanging fruit from a research standpoint, I'm thinking, both from a legal side and a historical side, is that FOIA request for the call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least find out if there was a 911 call made about it.
But I mean, I think your instinct was right on looking at that property. But because I'm trying to figure out the distance, because you've got variables that don't make sense.
Yeah, you can tell this story, but I want to see. I want to see exactly, what sort of acreage, what sort of distance, where this house is located, exactly where the forest starts, how big the fields are.
I want to know the distance between the house and the barn.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there is something, because, if it's a standard Home Depot floodlight you get. Now, this is 07. They're not going to be the extremely bright LED ones like you can get today.
Yeah.
Presumably halogen. If you get 30 feet out of one of those sumbitches,
then you're doing good.
That's good. And that's about it. You get about 30 feet.
Yeah.
And I think I'm being generous at 30 feet. I mean, growing up, because we had one on our car park growing up, and if you got 20 feet out of that thing, you were lucky.
You were doing good. Yeah. But yeah, just before we wrap this up, just weird, random kind of tidbit thing I found. Also in 2023, a man called Justin called into the 95.7 FM, a classic rock station out of Bangor, Maine, and he claimed that he actually lived in the Palmyra Werewolf house for 2 years, 20 years ago at the time he made the call, so before the Martins moved in.
Okay, let me get the time right. So he lived there 20 years before they moved into it?
Or before he called in, so probably early 2000s.
Okay, that to me that gives a lot of credence to rental house.
Yeah. Well, he said they had a few clips of the calls on this
Did you actually listen to
on
it?
this thing's website. Yeah, I actually did listen to him. And yeah, at one point he mentioned that the landlord was doing some renovation on it, so it was a rent house.
Okay.
Yeah, but he said he never saw any werewolves, but he did hear howling in the wolves at night. But he knows that it's Maine. You have coyotes, you have wolves.
Do you have all sorts of
That doesn't
creatures of
really
the
mean
night
anything.
there? Yeah.
But he did say the house was evil. And he said when he lived there, he and his family experienced a lot of paranormal activity. He said things would fly off the shelves. Apparently, the door to the loft where he slept at one night just flew open at 2 a.m. and he felt something slap the pillow next to his head. The TV would spontaneously turn on in the middle of the night. His wife saw laundry baskets of clothes fly off the washer and dryer. And then both Justin and his wife said they woke up and saw people, watching them in their bedroom at one point. His wife said she saw a lady in a Victorian nightgown, and he said he saw a man dressed in woodsman apparel.
Okay, there's a couple things to unpack from that. Okay. I want to know how old this damn house is.
Yeah. Like I said, I want to find the records, but the way whatever, I can't remember the name, but the county that Palmyra is in works, the way their website's set up, you got to have a name to search the property records. So until I find out who actually owns this bitch, I can't find it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then the other side to it is, so you got this family that had the wolf sighting.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever say anything paranormal about the house? Anything strange?
That other website I found that did the write up on the story from the Chronicle of Bigfoot book that ran the story about it said that at one point Eric did report that he saw an apparition in the house.
Okay, if it's an old house, that bitch could be haunted.
It could be.
Yeah. Hell, you can buy a brand new house now and it's fucking haunted depending on what land it's built on.
No shit.
Especially here in Texas. But it just makes me wonder about the Victorian side of it. That I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility that you've had some people, especially in a pretty harsh climate like Maine, keep up Victorian houses for over 100 years. It's not outside the realm of possibility. But I find it interesting that this guy calls in. It's almost like the whole source of his call is to talk about how fucking haunted the thing is.
Yes.
Because, if you listen to what he said, he's describing like classic poltergeist activity.
Yeah, he is.
I don't know. Did he want his 5 minutes or fame, or is there some
I guess, yeah. Apparently,
it?
Apparently, this news station ran an article about the werewolf incident, and so he called in relation to that.
Oh, he had to make his own Amityville horror story.
Maybe there was a Victorian-looking ghost. Palmyra was incorporated in 1807.
That's absolutely in the realm of possibility. Yeah. If it's incorporated in 1807, yeah, it's absolutely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, so possibly that house they were living in was one of those that was originally built and is 200 years old now.
Now I just want to know who the hell owns it now.
I know, because I want to get
records.
the property records on it.
That's so interesting. It's I always treated the whole thing, the Palmyra Werewolves thing, with a lot of skepticism, because that Paranormal Witness program is
it didn't do them any favors.
It did not. Everything I saw on that damn show didn't do anybody any favors. And with that, them coming out, the family coming out and actually saying, yeah, they embellished shit.
They embellished and exaggerated shit gives more credence to there might at least be a kernel of truth in that story.
So it's the way I kind of see it for people who are still trying to like investigate, the truth and veracity of this is, I mean, that 911 call is the first kind of step in it, to at least know what year it was. Was it 06 or 07?
Yeah.
So you've got that problem. I think you could figure out, honestly, a lot about this case by looking into the land.
I know. That's why I wanted to find it.
I know. Well, you can always do a follow-up if we can
Yeah, if
figure
we
it
can
out.
actually get our hands on that stuff. So there you go. Those are our werewolf stories.
And I ruined your podcast today by being too questioning.
No, you didn't. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to question it.
Yeah, well, this is what I do to my students. I ask questions like this all the time, and they get really nervous.
Like you said, I want to be Mulder, and you say I'm more like Scully now.
Yeah, I know, but I actually a hell of a lot like Scully in this one. But it's because that damn Palmyra case, and just to summarize this and close it up, that's one I really want to believe in.
I know.
I mean, you've got a family that doesn't have a history, that doesn't have like a bunch of bullshit in the newspaper.
No, yeah, and they never like brought it up again. If they were trying to do it for their 5 minutes of fame or for clout or whatever, you'd expect them to bring it up again, but they never did.
And I think it's important to kind of point this out before we close this up. These people were not out to make $1 like all the people at the Amityville Horror.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they were out to make money off of it, they'd have kept bringing it up. They'd have kept saying, the creatures keep coming back, but it was just that one incident.
I know. And I find that very, very peculiar. From somebody who listened to virtually the entire Art Bell collection, you could always tell a shyster. That the story just kept evolving and evolving. And I hate saying Mel's Hole probably was a fucking fake.
I think Mel had some other issues going on.
Beside this wombat rescue.
Yes.
You need to do an episode about Mel's Hole.
Mel's Hole is on my list.
I want to be on that one because I know all 5 calls Mel made.
Yes.
In graphic detail. But the problem was that's a dude who was trying to hawk something off because he kept spinning the damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
The sad thing is, if I had to put this family in perspective with any of the others, like I heard on Art's show, they remind me of fucking Desert Chad.
Oh God, he's not on my list. I need to put Desert Chad on my list of stuff to talk about on this podcast.
Desert Chad,
yes.
Real briefly before we close this, he was a dude that just went to this abandoned ass phone booth in the Mojave Desert. And apparently the fucking number for this phone booth got published in the late 90s. And so this dude would take his fucking van, go out there, and just have people call him all the time. This is early internet days. So there was still some magic to the phone.
Yes.
And it's a hell of a story.
Yeah, it's a hell of a story because apparently he had people from all over the world calling this random-ass phone booth in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Yeah, it was awesome. But he was on Art's show one time, and that was it. And he just told his fucking story, and that was it. And these people seem a lot like that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because there was no follow-up to it. They never said they saw him again.
And to me, the last thing on my point on it is it speaks volumes that they would tell a media outlet that they did not like how the story was embellished.
Yes, that's convincing. That was very convincing to me that, like I said, that at least part of the story that we know is true.
Yeah. Overall, it's a hell of a story, though.
Oh, yeah.
All 3 of these were good. I learned a hell of a lot for being a historian, I learned a hell of a lot about the French werewolf that I did not know. So.
Yeah, like I said, I only knew the basic part of the story. I didn't know the whole thing before going into research on that.
Overall, it was interesting.
Very good. So hopefully you learned something about werewolves too.